Hey there Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. Okay, so in today's video we are going to be taking a look at the differences between the Pisces Sun, the Pisces Moon and the Pisces Rising, so stay tuned. Now this series is an updated version of a series that I made about 4 years ago on the channel, so back in 2017. But I do hope that I'm able to bring some new and interesting pieces of information to the table today. Now, I do recommend that you watch the entire video, even if you're just here for your sun, your moon, or your rising. Watch the whole thing because things can interlink. But then also keep in mind that things may change depending on your sun, moon, and rising combinations. Also, I just want to say that this, of course, is my own analysis, but feel free to add to the comment section down below any thoughts and opinions that you have, because I do appreciate your feedback. Now, before we do dive into today's video, certainly make sure that you give this video a like if you do like it. Also, make sure to subscribe if you have not already, and to, of course, click that little bell icon so that you can keep yourself updated with further content from myself. And one more quick thing to mention, and that is that I have some merchandise pieces that are available, so you can go to the link in the description box below if you are interested. Okay, so with all of those introductions out of the way, let's do this. Okay, so just to give a brief overview of the sun, moon and rising within astrology, these three placements are known as your big three within the astrological community, and many people like to mention them as a way to express their very basic personality. Naturally, however, as most of us know, astrology goes much deeper than these three components, but I still think that it's good to learn about these placements, especially if you are a beginner, but even if you're more advanced, still I recommend watching, because who knows, maybe you will learn something new. Okay, so to begin, let's start off by looking at the sun in Pisces. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some keywords associated with the sun in astrology. Read those keywords, take them in. But what does it mean if these keywords are being combined with the sign or with the archetype of Pisces? Well, it creates an energy of one's individuality and ego being based on imagination, rhythm, and intuition. Also, it creates an energy of ever-changing and fluid creativity. So having an ever-changing and fluid creativity. Likewise, it creates an energy of compassionate, dreamy, and of a sensitive self-expression, as well as an energy of unconditional applause and attention. Plus, it also creates an energy of a pull between the conscious and unconscious. And lastly, it creates an energy of a dissolving / merging identity. But what does this specifically say about you if you were born under the sun sign, meaning that you have the sun in Pisces natally? Well, it suggests that you are intrinsically aware of your longing to merge deeply with others emotionally, and you're also aware of your deeper yearnings of connecting with something much higher or greater than yourself. So, if you notice someone needs help, or if they need assistance, for example, you'll most likely reach out in a caring and compassionate way. Or if you see a friend or colleague struggling, you'll step in as a way to say, "It's okay, I'm here, and I totally empathize with your situation." In fact, you might bend over backwards if it means expressing empathy or kindness towards somebody else, especially if that other person is very close to you. Yeah, if you hear a sob story, you may become emotionally invested and hooked. Now, don't get me wrong, this trait is admirable. After all, Pisces, you Pisces suns, moons and risings, you're known to be healers, you're known to be guides, and quite possibly you're known to be spiritual mentors, really. But the thing is that you often are taken advantage of for your kind nature. And you're often emotionally manipulated without you even realizing. You may be deceived. So you might give an ex a second chance, for example, or you might forgive a friend for the 1,000,000th time, or you might give into a situation that isn't actually good for you. And especially with this being the sun, there's an element of ego here. There's an element of pride. So sure, it might make your ego feel really good when you are seen as the bigger person, or when you rise above a situation, leading to you reconciling relationships, whether this be a friend or a family member or a lover or so on. But I think there comes a time when you gotta hold yourself accountable too. And a part of this accountability involves setting boundaries between you and other people. See, here's the thing. It's you, Pisces suns, who might martyr yourselves, play the martyr, the person who sacrifices yourself in the name of forgiveness, or in the name of unconditional love, or in the name of letting bygones be bygones. And there's also a rescuing element to this, where you swoop in and you act as the angelic hero. Perhaps you believe that you can change people, you can heal them by your guidance alone. It's you that has the power to help others see their darkness and their wicked ways. And maybe you can. But honestly, this seems one-sided to me, because what's that saying? The only person who is going to change you is yourself. Meaning that you can try and shine a light on other people to make them see all you want, but if those people aren't ready to see, or they can't see, well, it's a bit of a losing battle. And maybe you are wasting your time, quite frankly. Though I wonder, did you maybe grow up in a household where you sort of martyred yourself for others? Maybe your mother struggled with addiction, or maybe your father was an alcoholic. Perhaps one or both of your parents was absent, and so due to their absence, the other parent drank or smoked, or they shut themselves away because they find it far too difficult to cope. Or perhaps your identity or your self-development, it felt difficult to get a grasp of, as if you experienced an identity crisis that involved you being something that you weren't. Or maybe you were made to believe that your ego was to be lived or experienced through other people. Could have been the likes of a parent projecting their dreams and their wishes onto you. Or maybe a parent didn't allow you to have boundaries. Perhaps they walked in on you in the bathroom, or they read your diary, or they would invade any private or personal space that you had. Or maybe you simply didn't know what you wanted out of life because nobody bothered to ask you. It was like, you should do this, or you should move here, or you should be with that person, or you should get this job. And so in this respect, perhaps some of you Pisces suns, you got so used to living through other people's visions, or through other people's projections also. Maybe this specifically was a father figure who acted this way towards you, seeing as the sun does rule over the father within astrology. Then again, maybe this father figure was non-existent. He wasn't there. Maybe he was struggling with mental health issues, or maybe there was a separation between him and your mother. Quite possibly he was in prison whilst you were a child. Though on the other hand, maybe there's some of you where your father figure was or is a highly compassionate and loving individual, someone who is beyond generous and kind and sensitive towards other people. Or maybe he was or is quite an imaginative and creative person, someone who enjoys painting or writing or baking or designing. Then again, perhaps he switches between being openly loving and then feeling depressed and kind of distant. Maybe he can be quite moody in this respect, as he finds it difficult to regulate his emotions at times. Or maybe you've seen him in a vulnerable state, but you've also seen him in a confident, self-assured state. So in this respect, perhaps he is someone who goes through immense, uncontrollable highs and lows, but at the same time, he's most likely not open about his struggles directly. Or maybe he's someone who denies his struggles and his pain, and so you often hear things like, I don't have a problem, meaning that he's someone who is in denial at times, whilst simultaneously playing the victim. Like, don't blame me, that wasn't my fault, or this is all your fault, you made me do this. Essentially, perhaps you observed, you witnessed a father figure who would go from high to low, and everything was so unpredictable. And you never really knew what was going to happen next. And if you are a Pisces Sun individual who grew up with a father figure like this, perhaps you inherited such moodiness from him. You inherited his temperament. Even if you're a Pisces Sun individual who didn't grow up with a father figure like this, maybe you experienced these incidences coming from a mother figure, or perhaps this absence of the father has led to you feeling unsettled emotionally yourself. Though whichever way this played out for you, we're noticing this sacrificial side to your personality. We are also noticing how sensitive you can be towards others and how dependent you can be. In fact, you might take on so much emotionally that all you want to do is run away and never be found again. Heck, some of you may turn to unhealthy ways of coping with things such as drugs, food, alcohol, anything to escape reality really. Or some of you may idealize what is happening in front of you as a way to cope. So instead of seeing things for what they are, you see things how you wish to see them. Now again, this can be beneficial, these traits can be admirable about you. After all, you are typically such creative and imaginative people. Great when it comes to the make-believe, when it comes to fantasy. But like I said earlier, boundaries. And besides, when you engage in self-denial behaviors, not only are you deceiving yourself, but you're also deceiving others. So perhaps you gotta ask yourself at times, is it really fair to someone when you aren't being honest about what you want, for example? Or is it really kind and compassionate to lead someone else on without any real truth about what you want out of the relationship? Yeah, you can come across as very go with the flow without realizing that others are going along for the ride. Then again, maybe this is a part of your charm as well, because you never come across as if you're pressuring others to do things. You may just come across as open and receptive, very accepting, but when things get serious and commitments need to be made, it's good to be clear about what you want. Though to be fair, maybe you struggle to recognize what you want. What you want may always change anyway, and maybe being surrounded by others who accept this about you is preferred. After all, it's you who experiences very strong emotional changes, and so you often feel like you're being pulled in all different directions at any given time. And so perhaps a boundary for you is saying something like, hey, I'm gonna plan this with you, but at the same time, I'm just letting you know that things may change. Or, hey, this situation is too much for me to deal with right now, and so I need an hour. I need an hour and I will come back to you. Or you could say something like, I can see a future with you, but for now, I want to take things slow. Now, as much as these boundaries may upset others, at least you're being honest, you're being straight with other people. Better to be upfront whilst possibly hurting somebody else's feelings in the process, rather than not saying anything, resulting in you feeling all over the place emotionally because you're in denial or because you're pandering to others. And to be blunt, people will most likely feel hurt by you playing pretend anyway. Now, what's further interesting about such boundaries is that they help you establish an ego. They help you establish an identity. They help you become an individual. So rather than continuously living through others, you figure out who you are. Rather than engaging in people pleasing or codependency, you're okay then with standing on your own 2 feet. Though speaking of your ego, I also think a part of it is connected with your imagination and with your rhythm and your intuition. I think you grow to become someone who is very much in tune with your intuition and possibly in tune with your psychic abilities. You become an individual who flows with your natural rhythm rather than forcing yourself to live up to other people's projections, other people's perceptions of you. And you also grow to cultivate your imagination in such a powerful way. In fact, you could pour your imagination into any creative project or hobby you enjoy. And when it comes to your creativity, it's most likely ever changing. You're forever coming up with new ideas, new insights. You're continuously trying new things, and you're most likely open and receptive to anything otherworldly or mystical or fantasy related. In fact, some of you Pisces suns might actually gravitate towards professions that involve film or art or photography, or others of you may gravitate towards professions that involve mysticism or the supernatural. Then again, these things don't necessarily have to be professions, but they could be hobbies, they could be creative projects that you're working on. Or you might enter into spiritual fields. Though, again, like I say, even for those of you who don't make a living through such things, there still may be a curiosity, there's an intrigue. So perhaps you keep your eye out for messages or for signs or for spiritual animals, spirit numbers, talking about the whole spiritual side of things here. Or perhaps you believe you have guides that are helping you reach your highest potential. And like I said earlier, you are intrinsically aware of your deeper yearnings of connecting with something much higher than yourself. And so in this respect, perhaps you perform a lot of spiritual work, whilst this brings you a lot of enjoyment, a lot of happiness, a lot of pleasure. Or maybe you simply enjoy engaging in spiritual practices for fun. Or maybe there's those of you who are on a spiritual path, this spiritual journey, and so you feel connected with your higher self, or you strive to feel connected with your higher self. Perhaps a spiritual belief or practice, it keeps you from slipping, it keeps you from falling. Maybe it helps center you, or perhaps it's another person even who acts as that higher connection for you. For example, maybe the reason for why you choose to remain sober is because of your kids, it's because of your spouse. Or maybe the reason for why you don't slip into unhealthy behaviors is because of your job or because of your family. So it's this idea of being an individual for a higher purpose, for a higher reason, other than solely yourself. Though the only thing to keep in mind with this is the notion of falling apart when that higher purpose fades or if it disappears. So for example, maybe you feel like a nobody when your lover leaves for the day, or maybe you struggle with anxiety when you go out to public alone, or maybe you feel out of place when a coworker moves jobs. So sure, your individuality and your ego is associated with a higher calling, with a higher purpose, but remember not to lose yourself in the process. And also, it's holding yourself accountable, right? Recognizing that you're not just doing it for others, but you're also doing it for yourself too. Now, some astrologers do refer to the ascendant / the rising sign as representative of our life path, and then the sun sign as representative of the individual we are striving to become. And so in your case, Pisces suns, as I say, perhaps you are striving to become this individual who dives in and out of both the inner and outer worlds. Someone who can feel so deeply for others whilst also setting emotional boundaries, healthy emotional boundaries for yourself. Someone who can imagine and dream whilst also having a grasp of reality in order to ensure you are grounded. And someone who can go inward, but who can also come out for air. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat things here because this process, it's not easy. It can be very challenging, especially if you're a Pisces sun individual who is oblivious to any of your toxic behaviors or patterns, for example. I mean, living in the dark is easier sometimes, isn't it? Not having to live up to your crap is easier than facing your inner demons. Likewise, turning towards substances as a way to cope is much easier too. Only for the short term, of course, but by doing the inner work, as difficult as it may be, well, I think you can grow to take better control of yourself and better care of yourself, actually. And I also think it can lead to a much happier and healthier life in the long run. And besides, by doing that inner work, you develop those boundaries, and also you in turn hold other people accountable for their own crap too. So instead of you getting worked up about others, where you act as the savior, you're actually able to say, no, actually, I'm not here to rescue you or save you. That's not my job. And besides, I think that by you doing the inner work, you can actually, in a way, unintentionally help or rescue, save others in the process anyway. Just you don't realize it. After all, right, it's you who acts as a mirror. So when you change something about you, maybe others change as well. But this is all happening on a subconscious level. It's very interesting. And come to think about it, by you changing something about yourself, maybe you attract people into your life who align with this change. Or maybe you're less likely to tolerate people who do in fact take advantage of you. So that's just a thought, Pisces suns. And also, I think that by you doing that inner work, it helps you evolve into a much wiser person too. Now, before we do move on to the moon, make sure that you locate the house placement of the sun, because this is going to show you the area of life that this energy is playing out in. And also remember aspects, because aspects can show you any difficulties that may arise along with any other energies that are influencing that sun energy. Okay, so moving on to the moon in Pisces. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some keywords associated with the moon in astrology. Read those keywords, take them in. But what does it mean if these keywords are being combined with the sign or with the archetype of Pisces? Well, it creates an energy of compassionate and sensitive caregiving, along with an energy of temperamental and confusing emotional reactions. Likewise, it creates an energy of rescuing and loving emotional support, as well as an energy of unconscious rhythm and flow. Plus, it also creates an energy of an ever-changing and fluid, so having ever-changing and fluid emotional patterns, along with an energy of instinctive isolation and escapism. But what does this specifically say about you if you were born under this moon sign, meaning that you have the moon in Pisces natally? Well, it suggests that within your family home growing up, there was a lot of compassion and sacrifice, but there was also a lot of confusion and deception along with little boundaries. So for example, maybe family members were quite invasive, as they would want to know how you were feeling at all times, or maybe you shifted or changed your emotions as a way to mirror or as a way to reflect other family members' emotions and feelings. Perhaps family members were emotionally manipulative without meaning to be, or perhaps you were expected to show empathy towards family members even during times whenever you felt really, really hurt yourself. So this could have been the likes of a sibling saying, "Oh, come on, don't be like that, I was just joking." Or this could have been a parent telling you, "You're being far too emotional right now, you're overreacting." Then again, this could have played out where you felt confused by everybody's conflicting emotions and feelings, as if you were being pushed and pulled in all of these emotional directions. So as one person was feeling upset, another was feeling happy, whilst another was feeling calm and tranquil. But you, as the Pisces moon individual, perhaps you felt this need to react to all of these people. You felt a calling to attend to everybody's emotional needs, or you felt a calling to kind of mirror them in some way. But in the process of trying to support everyone, you were left feeling unsure of your own individual needs. You were left unaware, oblivious of what you needed emotionally, unaware of how to show care and support towards yourself. In this respect, maybe some of you Pisces moons, you are emotional martyrs. These saviors who try your very, very best to show compassion and love and empathy towards others, but in the process, you lose yourself. You dissolve yourself. And you merge with other people's woes, with their disparity, with their pain, with their sadness and their struggles. Now, don't get me wrong, this part of you is also your strength. I mean, after all, it's you that meets people where they're at. It's you that can help people out of a pretty dark place. And you might also gravitate towards a profession that requires that super empathetic and compassionate side of you, such as working closely with victims or working with helpless animals, for example. But on the other hand, there may be times when you unconsciously sacrifice yourself for others and you bend over backwards for others and you go above and beyond for other people. There's times when you are blinded by a kind gesture or by a love, and so instead of seeing things clearly, you live in this idealistic, imaginary, dreamy world. Though I wonder, is it that living in a make-believe world is soothing and it's comforting? Maybe it's more safe at times. For example, perhaps it's better to let things slide than address anything challenging, or perhaps it's easier to escape into your world than confront a difficult situation with a friend or with a partner, etc. Perhaps there's been times when you've tried to assert yourself, but you were instantly met with, "You're being far too emotional right now. You are delusional. You're unhinged." And if this is, or it was the case, you then start reacting to others in a more of a passive way. You take the path of least resistance, maybe. Maybe being passive aggressive is the best option at times. So throwing out subtle hints or subtle jabs rather than being upfront and being direct. But yet, while all of this is happening, you dwell, you pity yourself, and you feel sorry for yourself. And no wonder you do, because you're not having your emotional needs met. And so therefore, there's some boundaries to be made here. So this could look like you saying no, for example. And if somebody doesn't like it, then, well, maybe that's their problem and it's not your problem. Or this could look like you saying to a family member or a loved one up front, "I really didn't like what you did," or what you did made me feel this way, or "I need some space right now. You need to give me some time to myself so I can process my emotions." Honestly, I think you need to develop better emotional boundaries. Because if you don't, you're left in these strange emotional cycles that can be extremely difficult to navigate. And I also think that you need to develop emotional boundaries as a way to ensure that you don't get lost in things. You don't lose yourself within things. Seriously, you can be the types of people who get so caught up in arguments, for example, and then you start reacting irrationally. You lose track of what you said or what you meant, or you lose sight of the main point, the main issue. And she might also bring up past situations into the current one because, well, maybe you didn't actually resolve that situation from the past in the first place. You're kind of still dwelling on it and you're bringing it into the current situation. Basically, you might become baffled when you react emotionally to people and situations, and others might feel baffled too. And then it's like, well, now you really are being delusional. Though I wonder what it was like for you growing up. Truly, like, I know that it touched on some things, but is it that you grew up in an environment where your boundaries were crossed? Maybe you grew up with a mother figure specifically who was sick, mentally unwell maybe. Maybe you had to look after her. You had to support her and care for her needs. And even if you didn't, maybe there was a part of you that felt guilty for not. Or maybe you were often guilt-tripped into comforting others, or maybe this mother figure knew how to pull at your heartstrings, how to really pull at them. Or perhaps she projected her dreams and her fantasies onto you, and so you subconsciously would live your life through her. Or perhaps this mother figure taught you about compassion and love and self-sacrifice, but this might not have been in a direct way. For example, maybe you picked up on your mother's tendency of playing the martyr, playing the savior, this Florence Nightingale who would swoop in and sacrifice all of her needs in order to serve a higher purpose, or maybe as a way to serve the family. Or perhaps she believed greatly in her faith, so much so that she devoted herself to this higher power. Though on the other hand, maybe for others of you, your mother was an addict of some sort. Maybe she chased the highs of love, or maybe she had an alcohol or drug problem, or maybe she lacked emotional boundaries herself. And so in this respect, perhaps you see a part of your mother that is helpless, that is unsafe, and is easily deceived. Or perhaps this mother figure would play the victim anytime she was disappointed or let down. She would play the victim anytime she was asked to take responsibility for herself and her actions. Perhaps she was oblivious, totally unaware of her irrational behavior. Heck, she could have been someone who got involved with abusive partners, with users and abusers. But whatever way this played out, there's this part of you Pisces moons that feels ever so deeply for your mother. You feel her pain, you feel her suffering, you feel when she's upset and she's going through something. But at the same time, you also feel her excitement. You feel her highs, her passion, her enthusiasm, her love, her devotion, times when she feels on top of the world. Though, to be frank, perhaps for some of you Pisces moons, your mother suffers from a mental health condition. You know, it could be something like bipolar or some type of personality disorder. Though, of course, I'm not trying to diagnose anybody here. Just saying that these are the potentialities that can come with this Pisces moon energy. Still, it's you that gets caught up in her emotions. Or maybe you put her on a pedestal. You see her as the most perfect and inspirational person in your life, and so even when she acts unkindly towards you and others, perhaps you justify her actions as you overlook them. Now, by no means am I trying to say that your mother or this mother figure is bad, though in some cases maybe she was very deceptive, but it's more so that you see her as this all-feeling, all-knowing, all-seeing guru who has all the answers all the time. You sort of project your need for safety and emotional support onto her, and so she becomes the main source of healing and understanding. This could have even been a situation where you were separated from your mother or from your family as a whole, and so there's a part of you that is crying out for that emotional connection. Or maybe it's you that often feels like you're on a different planet from your mother or from your family overall, as if you and them are from two different worlds. And so there's that longing to merge deeply with others emotionally. There's these deeper yearnings to connect with something higher than yourself. And what may transpire from this is the likes of entering into relationships that are one-sided relationships that are all take. Or this could be a situation where you lose sight of your own emotional needs in order to fulfill somebody else's emotional needs. Maybe as a kid you were picked on, for example, but you didn't stand up for yourself. Or maybe growing up you were victimized in some way. Essentially, there's a tendency of you lacking a backbone. However, this is not to say that you are this weak and helpless person, or that you're forever this innocent person who doesn't know how to assert yourself. Oh no, because contrary to what others may think of you, Pisces moons, you're actually very strong people. You are people who learn how to transcend your emotional turmoil, provided that you do the work, of course. Provided there's some type of self-awareness brought to your emotional patterns and cycles. In fact, it's suggested that it's through vulnerability and release that you grow wiser and more in tune with your own feelings and emotions. But the most profound thing about all of this is that you often act as guides who can aid people in doing the same. But in order to unite with your highest potential, with your higher calling, you gotta look into your darkness. You gotta explore what is buried underneath, what is trapped in your unconscious awareness. For example, if you're a Pisces moon who is an alcoholic or you have issues with alcohol, you gotta address that, heal from that. Or if you're a Pisces moon who comes from an emotionally manipulative past and so you project that into your relationships with others, again, you gotta address that and learn how to heal. Or if you're a Pisces moon who unconsciously acts passive and turns into the yes person without thinking for yourself, same thing. Though I suppose that this is a difference between the sun in Pisces and the moon in Pisces, because for the sun in Pisces, it's more about developing boundaries when it comes to the ego. But for you Pisces moons, it's more about developing boundaries when it comes to your emotions, more specifically. Though I suppose the common theme of Pisces placements is performing inner work. It's going to the depths of our conscious awareness in order to transcend, in order to heal whatever is trapped. And it's also about seeking out and embracing our spiritual selves. So this idea of tapping into the collective unconscious, which I think is connected with how society is conditioned partly. And therefore, in your case, Pisces moons, I think you're people who truly feel for the collective. You feel a great need to heal and change society, to cleanse society in a way. And so you might volunteer, or you might give to charity, or you might perform good deeds, or you might do something pretty remarkable as a way to extend your care and your support. Then again, there may be times whenever you become overly emotional, so emotionally overwhelmed. Times when you find it extremely difficult to cope with things. Perhaps these times lead to you taking substances, or they lead to you escaping, or perhaps these times lead to you spending time in solitude. Though I suppose following on from this point, I think what you need emotionally is you need to be in solitude from time to time. You need that space to process your emotions. You need that time alone in order to center yourself and feel at peace. Also, things that involve the likes of film, music, art, photography, painting. These things may certainly help center you, and it's also these things that are types of escapism for you. Yeah, it's these activities that may provide you with emotional satisfaction. Likewise, being by the water may help. Something as simple as taking a nice warm shower or taking a trip to the beach. In fact, you might feel a very deep connection with the sea. Also, taking part in spiritual activities may help with you feeling more at ease. So this could be the likes of you journaling or reading or meditating or praying or doing some crystal work, whatever works for you. And quite honestly, when it comes to what you need emotionally, I think you really do need your space. You need others to accept your time in solitude away from everyone. Though the last point that I just want to make is that another thing I think you need emotionally is for others to back off you sometimes. You know what I mean? I think you need others to respect your boundaries if or when you set them, because quite honestly, when your emotional needs are not met, when your boundaries are constantly crossed, whenever people are pushing and pushing and pushing on you, it can lead to a lot of emotional outbursts. Now, before we do move on to the rising sign / the ascendant, make sure that you are locating the house placement of the moon, because this is going to show you the area of life that this energy is playing out in. But then also remember aspects, because aspects can show you any difficulties that may arise, along with any other energies that may influence that moon energy. Okay, so moving on to the rising / the ascendant in Pisces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some keywords associated with the rising / the ascendant within astrology. Read those keywords, take them in. But what does it mean if these keywords are being combined with the sign or with the archetype of Pisces? Well, it creates an energy of rhythmic and adaptable body movements, along with an energy of mystical and dreamy facial features, especially those eyes, Also, it creates an energy of an ever-changing and mobile life path, as well as an energy of a sensitive, temperamental self-identity. Likewise, it creates an energy of a rescuing approach to life, along with an energy of vague energy levels. But what does this specifically say about you if you were born under this rising / ascendant, meaning that you have the rising / ascendant in the sign of Pisces natally? Well, it suggests that you see the world through a lens of imagination, expansion, possibility, growth, opportunity, and fantasy, but you also see it through a lens of confusion, uncertainty, impracticality, disillusionment, irrationality. For example, you might possess these big dreams, these dreams that feel so far from reality, but you still believe in them anyway due to your inner faith. Or you might move through life in a very flexible and adaptable way where you seek out opportunities and experiences that resonate with you on a deeper, more soulful level. Or perhaps you appreciate film and beauty and art and romance. It's these things that are just full of color and creativity. And so in this respect, maybe you're a highly creative person, or maybe you're someone who counts your blessings as you take in your surroundings effortlessly. But then on the other hand, you might be totally oblivious to time, resulting in you getting mixed up with plans, or resulting in you being unaware of what you can realistically achieve in one day. In fact, you might become easily overwhelmed by daily tasks and obligations, or maybe you believe in what you want to see when entering into new situations or entering into new relationships and so on. So in this respect, you may wear these rose-colored glasses. Perhaps you can come across as quite shy or gullible or as naive at times, or maybe you appear as bubbly or as if you're somewhere else in your head. In fact, things may just fly over your head. And to be honest, perhaps you do come across as all of these things, but that doesn't mean that you don't know how to really clue yourself in. In actuality, when something of importance grabs your attention, you might come at it from a very emotional standpoint. So you might empathize with someone else, or you might see where somebody else is coming from, or you might even mirror another person, or you might behave in a similar emotional manner. But if you feel attacked, you might swim away. You might actually be very sensitive towards other people's perceptions and feelings of you. Maybe you can actually feel that whenever people are projecting onto you. Then again, I think there's another part of you that can have the tendency of pushing to help. This part of you that seeks to fix and mend other people, a side of you that wishes to correct other people's views and facts without you even realizing. So let's say, for example, that you're having a discussion with a friend or a partner, but then they say something that makes you feel uncomfortable. Maybe it's something you disagree with. Instead of maybe being direct, saying I disagree or that made me feel uncomfortable, you may come at it from a roundabout way. as you jump into the savior role. Somehow you unconsciously think you need to fix the situation or fix the person, as if you need to rescue this other person who is clearly misinformed, and so you unknowingly try to convince this other person of why their opinion or view is kind of wrong. But again, it's not direct, it's not subtle, you may not even realize that you're doing so or doing this. It's as if you're basically saying, you know, there, let me help you be more empathetic, right? Let me help you see things from a more empathetic lens. In fact, I think there's some insecurities associated with your ability to be direct and to be forward with others. Or maybe there's just more of an unawareness with these things. But then also, there's quite possibly some fears. There's fears of being wrong. There's fears of being incorrect. There's fears of not having all of the information that you need. But there's also, at the same time, some fears of hurting other people's feelings. Maybe growing up, you set out with the best of intentions, for example, of achieving grades at school, really good grades, but then you find it quite challenging. You find it hard to focus, to concentrate. Maybe the subjects were just not mentally stimulating, maybe they were really boring, or maybe you become quite restless, you become quite nervous. But yet the annoying thing about this is that you want to come across as intellectually steady and grounded. You try your best to be this way. You want to be deliberate in the words that you say. You want to arrive to conclusions in a practical and stable way. In fact, you're probably consistent and reliable whenever you do learn something that does hold your focus, that is mentally stimulating. Sure, you might learn things a bit more slowly, but once you get it, it sticks with you like glue. But the implications arise whenever you become emotionally riled up. Then you start slurring your words as your mouth runs away with you or with itself. Then you start feeling scattered. There's that whole scattered brain thing going on, which is most likely frustrating whenever you're trying to really make a point. Therefore, perhaps you grow up with this attitude that you don't fit in when it comes to things that are academic, more scientific, more to the book. Maybe actually you feel more connected to things that are unknown, unseen, things that are hidden from society, things that are more based on feelings and spirituality and intuition, things that are based on possibilities rather than limitations, and rather than things that consist of strict black and white facts. But yet, as you go to embrace such beliefs, you are met with resistance. You're actually met with these limitations, especially within your social circles. Why, you may ask? Because, well, I suppose people in society will always love to have an opinion, and it's people's closed-minded to the book opinions that frustrate you. Pisces risings. I mean, why aren't they seeing the bigger picture? Why are they not daring to dream like you do? Why can't they see that there are other options that exist and that they aren't as limited as they think? Essentially, I think you want to get others thinking outside of the box, but you're met with many challenges in the process, especially by people who are set in their intellectual ways. I'm sure they get under your skin. Still, however, I think something you're coming to learn is how to be direct and forward. And also, I think you're learning how to set boundaries between you and others. As I said a moment ago, you're very sensitive towards other people's perceptions and their feelings of you. But I also think you're sensitive towards other people's perceptions and feelings overall. You take their opinions and their views personally. Even if it's an opinion that has nothing to do with you, you might take it to heart. And this is why I think developing boundaries is a good idea. That way you won't get caught up in other people's drama, for example. In fact, I believe it's your self-identity that is a big part of your journey. And I think you're learning how to stand up for what you believe in. And throughout the process, other people's judgments and assumptions, well, maybe they won't impact you as much. Maybe you won't feel the need to jump in and subtly convince anybody of anything because you'll think, that's not my responsibility. Or why is that affecting me so much? What's that really got to do with me? Which, to be honest, I think this will make you a more empathetic and compassionate person, because you're giving others space to be themselves and to think for themselves. And you're not trying to subtly control the narrative. And you're also not feeling this urge to manipulate other people's views of the world either. It's interesting because people don't typically see you as someone who feels the need to micromanage. But yet, when you enter into relationships, this part of you kind of comes out. So for example, you might try to fix any issues within your relationships. Or you might try to manage all of the day-to-day responsibilities. Also, you might make your partner aware of all the things that they're doing wrong, and then you respectfully correct the situation by showing them how to do things correctly. Or you might get to the point in a relationship where you go, I'll sort that, you don't have to worry about that. It's as if your relationships turn into this parent-child dynamic, and in the process, you might also suppress or deny your emotions as a way to keep the peace, or as a way to ensure that everything goes correctly and smoothly. But if you do this, you might come to find that you harbour resentment and you harbour bitterness towards your partner. And this same dynamic might actually play out within your friendships, where you subconsciously act as the parental type who needs to fix and help and manage everyone. But the whole point that I'm trying to get to is that you don't have to solve or rescue others. Then again, perhaps a part of your life path is that of rescuing and saving. Now, the reason for why I say this is because, well, many astrologers do associate the ascendant / the rising with our life path. And so in your case, Pisces rising, maybe your automatic response is to jump into this savior role. Perhaps you grew up with an alcoholic parent, for example, or perhaps you grew up with a parent who was an addict or who was a gambler, or maybe a family member struggled with their mental health and so they were on medication, or maybe there was a lot of inconsistencies within your family home. People changed their minds constantly, people were fidgety and they were stressed and they were nervous, or maybe you felt as if it was your duty to feel for everybody, to be the soundboard, to be a listener for everyone. Or maybe what you had to say was drowned out by other family members. Perhaps you were the emotional sponge or the free therapist, as others would lean on you for emotional support. Though on the other hand, perhaps your parents projected their fantasies and their dreams onto you. Or perhaps they didn't teach you how to build a backbone or how to stand up for yourself. Or maybe you grew up with a false perception of how the world works and you believed it. But then you were severely disappointed when your bubble was burst. Though whatever the case, there's this instinctive reaction within you, Pisces risings, that saves, that rescues. However, I also think that as you grow and as you mature, you become more aware of your individual wants and your individual desires. And so therefore, along your journey, you develop more of an individuality. You grow to be independent and you also grow to take charge whilst being up for taking on new challenges in life. Though another part of your life path is that of developing a spiritual awareness. So discovering your spiritual beliefs or your spiritual meanings. And even for those of you Pisces risings who don't consider yourselves as spiritual, which would be surprising, I think a part of your life path is connected with finding out what brings you inner peace, what brings you inner fulfillment and stillness. Quite honestly, I think you might find it difficult and very challenging to do these things, to find the inner peace and stillness, especially given that you can suffer from anxiety, you can suffer from dark thoughts. I think you can find it difficult to shut off your brains, but still, maybe something tranquil in your life can help. Perhaps not getting overly invested in others would be a good place to start as well. Or maybe stepping back from the chaos is a good idea rather than getting swept away by everything, resulting in you acting as a people pleaser or being codependent. Or maybe also a good place to start would be by getting into your body, you know, getting into your physical body, you know, through the likes of exercise and so on. Though on the other hand, maybe your views are unique and your sensitivities, they're a part of your power as well. But you don't need to justify or explain these things to other people in order for them to get you, or in order for them to really understand you. Which, come to think about it, I think a part of your life path is actually associated with embracing your uniqueness whilst overcoming your fears of not being included. Now, whilst the rising / the ascendant is associated with our life path, some astrologers also associate the sun sign with the person in which we are striving to become. And so make sure that you are locating your sun sign for more information there. Likewise, consider the placements of your chart rulers, Pisces risings, which are both Jupiter and Neptune. Because these placements, they can give you more insight into things like your spiritual beliefs or your spiritual meaning, along with inner faith, inner fulfillment. They can also give you insight into your inner wisdom and intuition, as well as things connected with the unknown, the unseen, as previously mentioned. Oh, and also they will provide you with more information about things like growth and expansion. Though honestly, I think your life path, it's ever changing and it's very mysterious. There's no predicting where you will end up. Yeah, your journey isn't a black and white one. It's full of high highs and low lows. It's full of these synchronicities, and there's a lot of feeling and intuition coming into play. And perhaps you grow to accept this by surrendering to what could be. However, when it does come to your life path, make sure you are considering the other 11 houses throughout your chart. But I still think that the direction of your life, Pisces risings, is ever changing. I mean, you are the chameleons of the zodiac. Now, you, much like the Pisces suns and the Pisces moons, you gravitate towards, well, you may gravitate towards fields and areas that involve things like art, music, photography, theatre, film, dance. You are natural creatives, and boy, when you embrace this part of yourself, you lose yourself in the process, and you probably don't think about anything else whilst your imagination just runs wild. Also, though, just looking at those facial features, there is something very dreamy and mystical about them. For you, Pisces risings. Yeah, you are known for having such dreamy and beautiful sparkling eyes that others they can become lost in. And you are such captivating people. Such captivating people. Now, the last thing that I want to touch on is to do with your energy levels and how these energy levels of yours can be unclear and indefinite. Yeah, there's no knowing how your energy levels will play out day to day. You could set out with the best of intentions of completing something, for example, but then you become distracted, or maybe you become emotionally drained. In fact, planning things might not be your strong suit because of how you prefer to go with the flow. And also, you tend to be guided by feeling and emotion over strict shoulds and musts. Basically, you typically go through these ups and downs when it comes to your energy levels, and there's no guaranteeing what will happen. After all, it's you who finds beauty in the unknown. Though, with that being said, when it does come to your energy levels, make sure that you are locating Mars within the chart, because Mars rules over things like our energy levels and our drive within astrology. Yeah, the location of Mars may tell a different story to what I'm saying, but it may actually add to the story. Okay then, Cosmic Warriors, so that concludes my really long video all about the differences between the Pisces Sun, the Pisces Moon, and the Pisces Rising. Now, if you happen to have any of these placements, then definitely let us know what you thought of the video in the comment section down below. And basically, yeah, anybody, if you're you want to provide your comments, your opinions, feel free. But with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And of course, if you would like to see more videos from myself and you have not yet subscribed, then make sure that you click that subscribe button, and also make sure that you give this video a like, remember. And I will be back with another video very, very soon. Bye!